Small. Stand up, y'all. This is our great elder. Stand up and give it up for Bobby Small.
Thank you, Dr. Posey. Everybody, thank you very much. Nicholas, this bookstore is still the center of the black world. Yes. Especially here in Brooklyn, which is the black world in New York. I don't think you guys understand how much Africa this is. Every time I come into Brooklyn, I go, dang, I'm living in the wrong country. Brooklyn is a whole African nation that don't even recognize itself as such, you know? So we need to get there. Now, we're talking about black love. There could be no greater love than somebody who would die for you. Normally in the OAU, we never would do anything. That was standing orders from Ellen. We never did anything on the 21st, because we always saw it as somehow celebrating his assassination. So when brother asked me, I told him I don't usually speak anywhere on the 21st of February, because that just kind of, in the old days, but now we realize you've got to teach, especially when the occasion allows people's spirit to reach up. And this is a time when, you know, Malcolm's spirit reaches out. And he was really a very good brother. He wasn't just this bad dude at the microphone. Malcolm was a very quiet guy. He was a very kind dude. He would rather spend his day with his wife and children on any occasion. And yet his work took him away from the house for most of his adult life. I don't put much emphasis on Malcolm as a criminal, because Malcolm was a really big time criminal. And that stuff was overblown even by him, because he was trying, when he did this biography, this book was done as a promo for the Nation of Islam. Most of it was written while he was still in the Nation of Islam. And so when he left the nation, he told Haley he didn't want to change anything, because Malcolm helped to build the nation. He understood the value of the nation to the resurrection of black people. And no organization, no religious or secular organization, black or white, in the history of the Western Hemisphere have raised more dead people back to life than the Nation of Islam. And unfortunately, because they played that shit so cool, they still have us denying the value and the worth of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And all those hundreds of thousands of brothers and sisters that saved all of those hundreds and thousands of brothers and sisters who were on drugs, who were alcoholics, who were in prison, that nobody else wanted to lift up. Nobody, no organization has done what the Nation of Islam did and is still doing. And yet, even those of us who say we're nationalists, we block it out. Because the devil will say block it out. I used to do it too. When I first came home, when Malcolm got killed, I was in the war. We called it in the American military war. I met Malcolm in '93. I was 16 years old. He was actually protesting the March of Washington on 141st Street and 8th Avenue in front of Food Family Supermarket. It's not there anymore. There's an elementary school there. I used to bag groceries in that supermarket back in the day. And the one thing he said to me, I was from South Carolina. I came to visit for the summer. But I'd seen him on television while I was in South Carolina, so I told my mother, we lived on 115th Street, which was around the corner from the temple. I want to meet this guy. I've never seen anybody like this. And I remember there's a young brother named Dwight Green who got to be my buddy. We went to the temple, but he wasn't there. And the brothers told us where we could find him. And he told me, I wanted to leave high school. I wanted to kill white folks. I wanted to, I was ready. And so he told me, no, young brother. He said, we need you to get an education. We need you to stay in school. We need you to learn some skills and then come back and help your people. And so since he said that to me, I was thumbing through the book over there when I saw the children here, trying to see what could I read as a quote from Malcolm. And this one jumped out because he said almost the same things to me back then. This is him in the autobiography. He said, my greatest lack has been, I believe that I don't have the kind of academic education I wish I had been able to get, to have been a lawyer, perhaps. I do believe that I might have made a good lawyer. I've always loved verbal battles and challenges. That you can believe me that if I had the time right now, I would not be one bit ashamed to go back into any New York City public school and start where I left off at the 9th grade and go on through a degree. Because I don't begin to be academically equipped for so many of the interests that I have. For instance, I love language. I wish I were an accomplished linguist. I don't know anything more frustrating than to be around people talking about something you can't understand. So he had this great emphasis. And he went further. The brother had a vision. Listen to this piece. This really caught me. And years ago, I colored that, right? He said, aside from basic African dialects, I would try to learn Chinese because it looks as if Chinese will be the most powerful political language of the future. He said this in 1964. So young people, Malcolm put an extraordinary emphasis on education. And when you see Malcolm up there, he isn't just a guy talking. He's a well-learned, well-studied scholar. You know, I remember after he was assassinated, and I came home, and I was his sister Ella's bodyguard, and I was the bodyguard until she died. And I lived in the house in Boston. There's a lot of things people don't know about Malcolm, and there's a lot of myths out there. And even a bunch of people claim they knew Malcolm. They just lied. They didn't know Malcolm. They don't claim around me they know Malcolm. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, I'm still one of the living dudes who was around. You know, Malcolm, even with the Islam part, Sister Ella, and I take some liberties sometimes, was a very close friend of King Saud. And the Saud family owned a hotel in Boston. Now, Ella was at the top echelon of the black Boston elite. She was a very wealthy woman. And that's who paid all of Malcolm's expenses. I heard people talking about who paid his way to Mecca, who did that. Ella did all of that, you know. When he was trying to move to buy a house, Ella was going to buy the house. Almost any, when he didn't have money, and most of the time Malcolm had no money, Ella gave him the money. Ella was the place he went to get his finances. And no one even talked, we're trying to write a book on her now, no one even talked about this lady. That's a heck of a lady. But it was her relationship with the Saud family that got Malcolm into Mecca. So when you read the book and you see him getting all these perks of the princes and other people, it had to do with that family relationship. And even when Malcolm entered the nation, this was not a strange thing to the little family, or the Collins family. Ella's name was the Collins. Because right across the street from the house where I spent much of my young life, 46 Mass Avenue in Boston, was the Ahmadiyya mosque. And they were all very good friends, because Ella was the power on that block. We controlled that neighborhood. And living in the house, even while Malcolm was there, was Sister Sahara, who was an Egyptian sister who was studying here in America. So this myth that Islam was something new to them is a myth. So you got to study and get a good, deep understanding. What Malcolm understood and what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad understood, that, you remember the term when we used to use our brothers, because I was never in the nation, so I'm the odd guy out, but I was trained by Moses Powell. So don't make the wrong step up in there. You know what I'm saying? Now, Moses trained most of us out here, actually. You know, most of the great senseis in New York today studied under Professor Powell. But when we think of this day, and we talk about love, a man knew he was going to die if he came back to this country. But he felt that his love for your right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, for your right to freedom, was worth him giving his life if that's what it took. And remember, this was a youngster. This guy's 39 years old. I'm 70. I feel guilty sometimes making it to 70. He died at 39. Most of what you see, that power, he's in his 20s and his 30s. Standing up against the most powerful bunch of criminals on the planet Earth. With nothing but the wisdom of his ancestors in his mind. And he frightened them to death. They're still frightened of Malcolm X. Now Malcolm X, and I've got to talk about Malcolm to get to the love question. Because love ain't no emotion you can't explain. Shit, I can explain love all day. I'm explaining it now. You know? Malcolm X, for his time, was just the last or the current expression of the most ancient of our ancestors who spoke that same truth before even Kemet was built. See, he didn't bring you something new. He brought something that was new to you. But what he brought wasn't new. The universe hasn't changed from the most ancient moment to right now. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was endowed with a body of wisdom from his teachers, who was endowed with a body of wisdom from their teachers. And Malcolm was endowed with that body of wisdom from his teachers. Now the wisdom wasn't just talking about how far the moon was and the sun was. You all know the lessons, brother. You know what I'm saying? That was important to know because it made your mind think. You know, math is a process of thinking. And so they used the math in the nation to make you think, to make you learn how to think and to practice thinking and to be logical in your thinking. And then they gave you a lot of information, specific information about history and our contributions. But that wasn't what the deal was. That wasn't what the thing was. Those were just tools that was training the thing. You know, when God Allah left the nation and organized the brothers, you know, they call themselves gods on earth today. God sent nation back in the day. They would call themselves gods. Now listen, these Negroes here, absolutely crazy. But in the nation, quietly, they were calling themselves gods. And we still haven't got that. Now, I started kicking it around about 20 years ago with God having a human experience. I have everybody using it today, but I'm not seeing them being it. The whole teaching, the only thing that's going to make you free is when you understand that you're God. The only thing that's going to make you free when you understand you're God, because freedom means there's nothing that you're subordinate to. And as long as you find yourself subordinate to some ideology, some concept, some religion, you are not free. And that's what happened to Malcolm. See, he outgrew the religion. And it wasn't just brothers in the nation that got upset. And this isn't all the nation. Every organization has class, caste, and stratus. And the nation had its class. It had a military class, the FOI. The FOI had a hierarchy. It had a religious class, and then it had a theological class, the ministers. And they all had stratus. And there was a fight even before Malcolm left the nation about who was ruling the nation, who was ruling the temple, who's in charge of the temple. Is it going to be the FOI, is it going to be the minister? Is it going to be the FOI, the minister, or the community, the congregation? That war was going on. That's part of the war that led up to Malcolm's ousting. You know, the messenger knew this war was going on. He was trying to mitigate it. He was trying to mediate it. You know, we have in our possession a letter from the messenger, but the messenger tells Malcolm, watch your back. You have to watch your back because there's so much envy and jealousy among your own brothers, something bad might happen. And he put that in red to tell Malcolm, you have to learn how to keep your eyes open in the right place. This is the message. A year before, he's ousted from the nation. The messengers see this thing coming. Malcolm didn't see it. It's the messenger that saw it and tried to warn Malcolm. Cool it, he asked him, because there's danger. And he put it in red ink. And that's a man we know so little about. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Y'all need to study that man. Message to the Black Man, I bought 5 copies when I was down in March, because they were selling them cheap. I had $7. Could you imagine that? Get a copy of Message to the Black Man. It's an important book. And for Malcolm, read the autobiography, because this is not Alex Haley's work. This is Malcolm's work about himself. And there's another good one by Dr. John Henry Clark, and you're in the bookstore. I hope you'll have some of these books. Dr. Clark's piece that he edits on Malcolm. And then this is one, Malcolm's cousin. Very few people have this book. It's called From the Dead Level, Malcolm and Me, Hakeem Jamal, who was assassinated a few years after Malcolm up in Boston. And his assassins were never apprehended. And then the latest piece that came out by Jared Bell, Todd Stephen Burroughs, and it's the multiple writers, and they're refuting that Negro who died. And Malcolm killed him just before the book came out. But I don't even remember his name. Little homo from Columbia University. Whatever. But he died. Malcolm killed him. He didn't even see the book. He didn't even get to spend $1 million to crack his game. So, and but what Malcolm did, the knowledge of self, the physical discipline, the becoming healthy. You know, when they did the autopsy on Malcolm, the coroner said that was the cleanest body I've ever seen in my life. Meaning the physical inside of this man's body, because he ate correctly. It was the cleanest body he had ever seen. He would not have died from any foolishness had they not killed him with bullets. So when you're talking about developing yourself spiritually, it's a physical phenomenon, it's a spiritual phenomenon, it's a psychological phenomenon, it is an intellectual phenomenon. All of these are levels of consciousness that you've got to work on yourself, and there are even other levels. And you got to be deliberate about it. Studying history isn't just for the purpose of gathering information. Right. Studying history opens up aspects of your DNA that allow you to remember when. Because everybody in this room have always lived. There was never a time when you didn't live. But we confuse our body with who we really are. Our body is a place we live. They're not who we are. That's why if you were to practice cremation and I burn you up, that close to 90% water evaporates and I got a handful of ashes. But that's not who you are. The little bit of minerals that's left as ashes, that's not who you are. You are that energy force that exists within this institution we call our bodies. Now sometimes people don't want you to go there because they think that's too way out there. But if you study any traditional African religion and you get past the okie doke, because a lot of us go into African religion, we get caught up on the candles. Candles are good. Like sisters selling certain candles. Aromas do certain things physiologically, psychologically, and spiritually for you. But you got to know which aroma to use, when to use that aroma, etc. That's the knowledge that you need to understand to live in your environment and get the best out of that environment. You know, when you eat vegetables, what vegetables give you what minerals? Yes. What vegetable is good to eat at what time of year? All that is a part of the ancient African science. Water, how important is water? I like beer, I ain't lying. I don't use a cold beer right now. Well, I got no water, right? But I know water is the thing. But come on now, we were kicking beer back in ancient Kemet. We invented beer, not somebody up in Bavaria or Germany. And ice ancestors must have had a purpose. Almost everything they had, they didn't drink it out of lust the way we do today. You know, we even ate pork a certain time of year. You know why? Because it cleansed the body. So it was like during the springtime when it was time to cleanse. When I grew up down in the South, they always told you when April and May came, they were getting rid of the worms. I didn't know my mama never told me getting rid of the worms. And you had to take castor oil. All right? And then you had to have a few days where you were fasting and then drinking only water and then drinking then soup, and then you could slowly get back to what you were doing. But that happened every year. They got rid of the worms, meaning the parasites in your body that you got from eating the junk, that you got from your environment. But they knew those sciences. That was basic to survival. How do we take care of ourselves? The thing that's called, when you see these buildings called churches and mosques and temples and stuff, builds a replica of the human body structure. This is the temple that all of the ancient books and writings are talking about. The temple they're talking about is your body. If you treat this body the way those documents tell you to treat the temple, you're on it. Okay? But if you think the temple is some wooden building or brick building or cement building, then you lost your way, like most of us have lost our way. And that's why most of us who are in traditional African religion do more to scare people away than to bring them in. Because you want to get initiated system? $5,000 up front. Okay? You want to get a reading? $300. And the reading they give you, you can get out of the New York Post. No, that's the truth. Now, there's some good priests and priestesses out here. I don't want to put all my brothers and sisters down, but something is wrong with as many priests and priestesses we have, and houses we have, and bimbes we dancing, and the this and the that, and our situation ain't changing at all. Something's wrong. Somebody's playing somebody. We knock the preacher, and then we get up to the preacher's only charging 10%. We hit you for $5,000 up front. That don't count the rest of the stuff we're going to put you through. To do what? To give you the truth that belongs to you when you were born on the earth? Yes, a priest or priestess should be compensated. These are people that are working. But that compensation should be reasonable and should be decided between you and them. That's the way it's done in our culture at home. But then this thing called love, there's a man called Malcolm. Most of our parents, and even in most of our hearts now, because most of us, like me too, we grew up initially in the church. And then Jesus got banged in, embedded into our psyche. I remember Dr. Ben was telling me about a time they went to Kemet. And they were flying from Kemet over to Sudan. They were in the desert. But the desert sand got into the prop plane, and the plane started sputting and was going down. And there was one sister on there who was a Muslim sister. She was covered up, and everybody had to submit to her, Islamic protocol. She was just hardcore. But when that plane started down, she screamed, "Help me, Jesus!" Because it's embedded in the psyche. It's embedded in her DNA. And she couldn't excise it because you can't just excise it by, you remember we used to say, drinking Arabian punch, getting drunk on Arabian punch. You all remember that term, right? So a lot of brothers and sisters get drunk on Arabian punch, but don't get to the substance of what Islam is really about. Because if you get to the substance of what Islam is really about, and Malcolm had gotten there, Malcolm understood it. That's why he moved from being a theologian to being a political freedom fighter. Because he understood it. Prophet Muhammad, when because I'm also a Hajj, I used to be an imam for 18 years, went to Mecca twice, before most of you were born. And the Prophet Muhammad, in the 5th year of his mission, some people was trying to assassinate him because he was bringing these new ideas out. So he figured, okay, I can escape and hide and stay in the land because he had a rich uncle, a guy named Abu Talib, who had moved on the dude that was Sufi and who wanted to kill his nephew. So they hid him out in this cave. Now the people couldn't find him in the cave because it's a whole chapter devoted to this in the Quran. And when they got to the cave, a spider had woven The webs of the cave, so they said nobody could be in there because the darn spider web would have been broken. But the prophet was hiding in the back of the cave, and the spider, being a part of the natural phenomenon, when you're spiritually in tune, that's your brother, that's your sister, and they're going to work on your behalf. But what is he going to do with his followers? He told his hundreds and hundreds of followers to do what? Go to Ethiopia. Go to the land of the blameless ones. And there you'll be free and you will be safe. Now that may sound like a little tiny thing. Go to the land of the blameless ones. Now those who took over after the prophet didn't believe that way, because they invaded our land and they murdered us and raped us and enslaved us, and that was a cracker bring us over here too. That's another story for another lecture on Arab Islam and slavery that people want to deny exists, and it exists even to this day. You know? But we won't go there, just to say that the leader of that, the brother who came to redo, and let's look at what the prophet was doing, because this is germane to what we're discussing. The place we call the Middle East, where Islam as a form first rose, was a land that had been taken over by the Greeks, the Romans, the Turkish barbarians from the Oxus River up in the Caucasus Mountains, by these white folks, Kurds, who now call themselves Persian, because the original Iranians or Persians were black folks. But now these crackers over centuries had invaded and they took our land, and they had bastardized our way of life and our culture. So the prophet came, as he said, I come not to bring a new religion, but to restore that which was here at the beginning. That means he came to restore African spiritual science, which is what we study when we try to look at Kemet, but most of us going into Kemet getting confused too, and trying to be God over people, shaking arms and shit going on. You know? No, being serious. Because the condition of the people speaks to the leadership of those people. And we got the wisdom, but you've got to believe that you are God having a human experience. You got to believe that you can learn as much as Malcolm knew and more. You got to believe that you can transform the world. Just like you think process that must take place inside of you. And that you must have a certain body of information to help you go through that transformative process. Then you just think it's some metaphorical, mythological story on the pages of a book. And then you go set up some shrine in your house, pouring water all day, burning candles all night, and your problems ain't changing. Your problems won't change till you change. That's the model Malcolm gave us. He changed the things around him because he changed the things inside of him. That's the power that the nation gave to us, and we all have turned our back on. That's why you need to read Message to a Black Man. That's a powerful book. You wouldn't have a Malcolm X without Message to the Black Man. Without Elijah, there's no Malcolm. But people have messed with our psyche and confused us. Yes, there was a rift in the family. Yes, brothers hurt brothers. Yes, there's a scar. But heal yourself and go forward in a healthy way, instead of digging into the same scar over and over again, causing the body to get infected and unhealthy and unable to defend its people. Study Malcolm for real. That's transformation as a result of spiritual wisdom and understanding, knowledge of history and self. And isn't it on all the temples in Kemet, man, know thyself? Don't let people turn you away from your elders and your ancestors simply because they're not perfect. Malcolm wasn't perfect. Honorable Elijah Muhammad wasn't perfect. Minister Lord Farrakhan isn't perfect. But ain't no man right now can speak for us like Minister Farrakhan. You can talk all that stuff about what's this Church of Scientology and all that other foolishness. Look at the man's work. Look at them young brothers that's not in the penitentiary, that's not on dope anymore, that's not on alcohol anymore, that's not out here committing crime against the community anymore, walking upright, straight, clean, and being healthy human beings. Then tell me whether the man's work is worthy of praise. And stop blaming him for something that happened 50 years ago. I know for a fact Louis Farrakhan was not involved in Malcolm's death. People need to stop it. And all the people who are saying it don't know nothing about us. I know because our people followed Minister Farrakhan from Boston that night before to Newark, where he was to speak at Brother Shabazz Mosque the next day. Because we was in a conflict. So we know where the minister was. The minister was caught in a conflict. Loyalty to his leader, master teacher, or loyalty to his brother, who's the junior teacher of the master teacher. He was caught in a conflict. Me, caught in the same conflict, being appropriate, I would side with Elijah. You have to. That's what the law of nature demands. You can't, because your sibling have a problem with the parents, decide that you then going to turn against your parents. That's crazy. Yes. So stop blaming the man for having acted appropriately. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Yes. See, Malcolm came to teach us something that would help to transform us so that we could do some things for ourselves and our families that would be worthy of calling ourselves God's having a human experience. Love, you know, like I look at the sister sitting here in green. First thing I see when I see you, especially my young days, I had a little lean too. I used to drive a car to go to the gas station. I was rolling back in the day. Thought I was looking good too. I see the beautiful you, and the first thing that hit me is what? That power of nature. What is it called? Power of attraction. It's a law of nature. That's how you first meet any companion. But now that the attraction has brought you together, you must have a body of knowledge that allows you to examine the possibility of the relationship. And that's where we're missing. That's the missing piece for us. We go rolling in on the attraction and cause all kinds of harm to one another. Then children come out of the relationship. Then we causing harm to them. Because we didn't have the knowledge to say, okay, I'm attracted to this other being. There are many things. I could have been attracted to the sister over here, but there's enough peculiarity about you that I got attracted to you. So now let's examine the possibility of building a relationship that will lead to the primary reason for being here, building a family to produce an offspring that we are demand to train to be better than ourselves. That's what love's all about. When you go back to ancient Kemet, the oldest symbol you're going to see is a star, a set, and Haru. Now, the white man took it and called it Jesus, Mary, and the Holy Ghost, whatever person he put up in there. But what Africans were saying was that the family is the motive. The family is the purpose for your being. But the male and female coming together around principles which we have defined as ma'at. And man, those 42 now, that's just 42 of 400 and something of those principles that you master over a lifetime. It is those principles that give you the character, the quality, and the attributes that determine your ethical, moral understanding of what your relationship is to the rest of all the other things in nature. Y'all understand that? Yes. Because it's all about nature. You know, if you don't believe it's about nature, brother, what did you have for breakfast today? Some oats, some grain thrown out in the field somewhere, right? What did you have, sister? Jamaica got a callaloo different from the Trinidad callaloo? I'm messing with you. I always love callaloo. But are you callaloo? If you wanted to get nourishment, one would think, if we're thinking logically the way the white man teaches us to think, for me to recreate myself, because that's what the oats did, right? The oats build the cellular structure in your body. The callaloo builds the part of the cellular structure in your body. It helps to magnify your DNA. But wouldn't it seem to make more sense to kill a human being and eat it to replace human beings? So y'all scared to say that. Y'all don't know whether you want to go touch that or not. Leave that alone. The point I'm making is that you are everything in nature. You are composed of everything in nature. You got zinc in you. You got iron in you. You got potassium in you. got manganese in you, and on and on. All of those things, and that's why you eat the foods you eat, not to eat the callaloo. You want the manganese, you want the iron, you want the different elements that these things contain. You want to absorb them in your body, because that's what builds your cell. But it isn't just the cell. You know, if I was to try and build a robot, when I was teaching this stuff like 30 years ago, people thought, like, this is crazy. If I was to build a robot that had all the function of a human being, I would need a nuclear power plant to run it. Now you think of that for a second now. If I was to build a body like yours, right, with every cell, every atom, every proton, every neutron, with all of the energy each one of them contains, I would need a nuclear power plant. If I was just to take 5 atoms out of you and create an explosion, cause those atoms to explode, I'd blow up this room. Do y'all understand that? Y'all don't quite understand it. Let me try to do that one again. I'm going to come to little brother. He's got 10 beautiful little handsome strong atoms. And so let me borrow your atoms. Then I'm going to go over here and I'll put enough pressure on them so those atoms would explode. It would blow up this room. But he had tens of millions of atoms containing that same fire, containing that same energy. When you grow enough and learn enough to tap into that, that's the power of spirit that people talk about. It's more powerful than a nuclear power plant. And it's your body. It's in you. When people say they can put their hands on and heal, some are fake it, but there's some people that can do that and heal you. Why? Because they can control that energy that's in them. You've seen the yoga. Some of them try to teach you the different levels of chakras. You've seen the studies that others have put it, talking about the kundalini, using that energy that we just throw away in sex and centering it up into your psyche and then using it at your will. That's what voodoo is about. The reason the white man is scared of voodoo, if you ever learn what voodoo is, you'll get voodoo back, crackers will have to leave the planet. But he's got you so afraid, you won't touch it. You won't touch a body of knowledge that will show you how to be God having a human experience. People say, well, small with me. You talk, I'm going to die, you're going to die. Yeah, in a few years I'll be gone. You know, all the people that I love, mama, daddy, granny, and them, uncle, and them, they're all gone. The way I knew them in those bodies, they're gone. Right. But before they were all gone, they all deposited themselves as me. You are the sum total of every one of your ancestors that has ever lived. Yes. Going back to the first causation, which we call God itself. Then nothing can exist but God. And in all African languages in our tradition, their word for God always means the totality of creation itself. Not some dude hanging it up in the sky doing something benevolent good. That ain't the African thing. In the African concept of God, God is every and all things at once, including you. And your peculiar individual expression is an expression of an aspect of that divine essence. And when we talk about destiny and purpose, as they do in the Yoruba, just before you leave, or room, which is heaven in that language, to come to earth, you find out what your destiny is. And once your destiny is explained to you, then you know what to do when you get to earth. But they said the journey into earth, you lose your meaning, you lose that body information, and that's what the practice of voodoo or Yoruba or Arkan is about, is to restore those memories. That's what Islam is about. I could take you to ancient Kemet and let you look at some slides I got one time. You need to come and let me do my 400 slides on Kemet and that history, and you'll see every position we take in Islam, every movement in the prayer. That's just how we pray at Kemet. You read the literature, it says we do, they didn't call it voodoo there, but we watch the same way voodoo. And if you do anything offensive, we took the full bath, the apostle. We did the same thing in Kemet. But if you don't understand history, you fight yourself. Yeah. You don't understand because you got the body of knowledge through a different door than you were accustomed to, because someone has cut you off from your knowledge, you don't even recognize it. And we end up fighting each other. Even that body of knowledge in the Christian church, believe it or not, is yours. But if you don't understand your base knowledge, you won't recognize it when it comes to you in another package. And you confuse the package with what's in it. And you just take it and throw it in the garbage. And now realize you have different packaging, but they all contain the same substance. But if you don't have a knowledge of the original substance, you can't reconstruct what's in the package even if you open it. You don't understand that? It's hard to say when Christianity and Islam in the hands of the cracker have been so brutal. But everything he got, he stole from us. From algebra to geometry. And he's used that to kill us. But are we going to tell him that the geometry is his? Or the algebra is his? Or the trig is his? Or physics is his? Those are our sacred sciences. But we've lost an understanding of how to love ourselves. You see, the love that you love is not the person. You must love the love you see in the person. But you'll not know how to see the love in the person unless you recognize the love in yourself. And that's why knowing thyself is so important. So that you learn to love yourself. If you learn to love yourself, and you will learn to love yourself when you listen to your ancestors' wisdom and you understand how they understood divinity. It is the love for God as you that you love. And you'll always recognize it in somebody else. And your enemy can never fool you, no matter what package they come in, no matter what attraction they throw at you. You go like, that look good, but I know what's behind that. You know? Because you love yourself. You recognize the divine in you. You understand the power of God has nothing to do with some man hanging on the cross. And even the word Allah has been confused now with some man someplace up in the sky. Even when we say Olu Damari in the Yoruba, we act like there's some person hanging that up and say up in heaven something. No. Matter of fact, Olu Damari happens to be the feminine aspect of divinity. And a lot of people don't want to give that one up and tell y'all. Because you can't begin life except going through a process that is only the function of femininity. All this other faggot stuff going on, they can't have no babies. And if you can't produce, you ain't doing what nature does, because nature does this every day, every minute of the day. Now, let me not be too hard on my brothers and sisters who are homosexuals, faggots, because they cripple too. No, let's be serious. The cracker has crippled them too. And some of them don't even know they're crippled. And they've been hurt so bad, they're afraid to even admit that they're crippled, because how are they going to live with what they have lived through to the point you brought the light to their eye? And I know because I used to counsel, and I had 2 of my people commit suicide because they couldn't face what was in front of them. These were young people in their 20s. So this devil is really a devil. You can understand it's all about keeping you from knowing that you're God. And the way he keeps you from knowing that you're God is keeping you from developing your mind. And you can only develop your mind through the history and experience of your ancestors. There's nothing in tomorrow. Tomorrow never comes. Tomorrow is a space and place that you've created to inspire you, to give you hopes, to motivate you. The present, you got nothing in the present you can work with. You got stuff in the present you can work on. But the stuff you're working on in the present, you got that from your past. Because the past is the only place where things are complete. And you can study the structure of it and the blueprint of it, and you can emulate and imitate it. And when you get that right, you'll understand why he's trying to cut you off from your past. The past is what allows you to create the present into your dream that you call the future. But the minute your present becomes the future, it becomes the past again. For the next generation to feed off of. Y'all understand that? I'm not trying to do no bamboozling. I'm giving you simple ABC to spiritual understanding. And so love is the deepest thing there is, because love is loving the God in you. the essence of what we call God or divine in you, you will recognize that essence in anybody else. And then you can choose who to integrate your love with. And trust me, you will know the best mix for you because you know how you're mixed. But if you don't know your mix, then you're just responding to attraction and attachment and habits. Attraction, attachment, and habits. Because that's all you got to hold on to because somebody took the information from you that will allow you to do the kind of quick, instant analysis of everyone you meet. You know? And don't let nobody fool you. And think because you've been abused, you've been raped, you've been lied to, you've lied to people, you've committed all kinds of crimes, and many of us have. You still know that's God having a human experience. You're just an unconscious God. You're just an ignorant God. And that's why I love about Malcolm and the nation and the Elijah. They took that ignorant God and enlightened it to itself. They weren't the only one. Noble Drew Ali was trying to do the same thing with the Moorish temple. But he was assassinated in 1929. Crackers peeped that, but like, yo, we can't let this happen. They took the brother out. They took his lieutenant out about 2 weeks before him in Detroit. No one has gone to prison for their assassination. There was another movement you don't know. You all know it today as the Baha'i movement. But do you know that it started out as a black Muslim movement in New York in 1910? Led by a brother from Turkey, but he had just gotten out, from Iran, but he had just gotten out of prison in Turkey, called Bab. Baha'u'llah. The Bab means the door, the gate. But the white folks got in there and took it over and turned it into this non-denominational, whatever it has become today. But that's why it's important to know your history. How many people are here from Trinidad? Got family in Trinidad. Go ahead, y'all. My wife from Trinidad. Well, mama from Trinidad. And I'm initiated in Trinidad. My shrine is in Enterprise Village, Chaguanas. You know. That's your home? Girl, I love that place. I'm from the Kenny Cyrus Elaine Jube, under Mother Joan and Mother, you know, Mother Valerie. They put me on the ground. You know, I took my time in the bush. You know, and the 2 weeks up in there. You sweat it out there. When you come out, you straight or you crooked. But they must have thought the brother was straight. That day I became all Benjo for Adebayo. So, and I danced with some of the best of even the spiritual Baptists there. Girl, I could shout. I talked about Trinidad because most people don't know when we think the way, even our history, you know, the Jews are very smart. They always take over our movement. They just did it again and you missed it. They took it over and called the black face, what do they call them? Black Lives Matter. You think it's you. That ain't you. That's the black homosexual carrying out the words of the Jew. And they're now your leaders. Crackers use the media and made them your leaders. They ain't led a damn thing. They were not the person out in Ferguson. They went out in Ferguson with a banner after a while and by and by. They weren't in the streets down in Baltimore. That was the hood in the streets in Baltimore. But they came with a banner, so the media has made them. Now our whole movement is called the Black Lives Matter movement. Don't let them do that to you. You know? Yeah, the Jews. He's one of them, you know. But the Jews, it was, you know, they ran the slave trade. That's what Leonard Jeffries was trying to tell you. They were the architects of it. And they ran the finance of it. You know? Most of the money that community has made, they've made off of us. From slavery to the retail facilities where we live, to the houses we rent. If you see the money that their vendors are making off of the public school that's miseducating your children every damn day, when they don't have the money to buy the books, and they don't have the money to buy I have a son who's a principal out in Brownsville. His boy has to fight every day, but they knew they better not move on him. He opted out of Common Core from the beginning instead of his own black curriculum. They would like to move on him, but they got to move past me and my friends. And they ain't gonna do that because they're gonna be a hot time in Old Brooklyn tonight. But he called a meeting because he wanted to change a door in the bathroom. He had to sit down with 10 different people, all of them getting a piece of the action. For a door that should cost you maybe $100, $150 with the labor, that door will cost $4,000 or $5,000, and all of them gonna get a job. We don't even know what's going on. That's why the Board of Education in New York, that was running a $13 to $15 billion a year budget, was auditing itself. It never had a state audit until I think Bloomberg came in, and then that was a fake out to destroy community control. But back to just being conscious, love. It's about love. We see these beautiful little kids. Who's the mother? I saw that she came in and she told y'all. I knew she was the mother. So, because mommy got that kind of power, that's the way it's supposed to do it. When you have him, you have to understand, remember this term, everybody remember this term. You deposited yourself as him. You didn't deposit yourself in him. You deposited yourself as him. His father deposited himself as him. So he's the sum total of every ancestor you've ever had, and he's the sum total of every ancestor your father ever had, which means if you could find a way to trigger the memory in his DNA, he'd be the smartest dude on the planet Earth. And the way you trigger that memory, you gotta feed him right in his body, and you gotta feed him right in his mind. And then you got to put him in a martial arts class, put him on a sports team, and let him develop his body, feed those muscles right. Teach him math. If you think you've been teaching him math, quadruple the math that you're teaching him. He can learn anything. Matter of fact, 2 years, if you work on him, he can go to any university in America. But you got to believe he can do that. But if somebody convinced you that you can't do it, then you convinced your children they can't do it, and then nobody prepared them to do it. But when you know you're God, you can do anything if you're God, right? And if you're God having a human experience, we understand we're not there in the fullness of it, but when we understand that our being is the potential of it, that all of our life will be spent growing, growing, growing. Right, little sister? We go back a lot of years. Girl, you looking so good. You looking good. Y'all look like about 16 when I started. Oh, that must be her cousin. You look well, sister. That means you taking care of yourself. We go back positively. I said, when it comes to, okay, let's start getting women small, go back. You know, first of all, line, slave theater, all the, gone to Africa, you know, traveling. But this is, love is about you understanding the essence of the divine in you. Every Orisha that anybody talks about live in each and every one of us. What the science of the Yoruba tradition is supposed to do is let you wake up the powers of those Orishas in you. Everybody have an Orisha that's most dominant, and that's the one you want to awake first. And that's the one you want to cultivate because you have one or two that's dominant. But all the others are also in you. And they become the companions then to the one or two that's dominant. And that's your power. That's your force. The same thing with the Loas and Vuvu. But you have to understand the science. And you got to be willing to study. And you got to be willing to learn. And then you got to be willing to go past the whiteboard intellectual espousing to application. How do I apply these things to me today in my life? Starting with how I eat, starting with how I dress. You know, check the clothes. We can't get around some of the synthetic clothes, but look at the labels on your clothing. Because remember, love. We want to feel good, this emotion. Emotion is a part of love. Don't let anybody tell you emotion is negative. Emotion is a part of love. Emotion emotion is the thing that allows you to appreciate an action in a relationship. But the emotion isn't love. And if you stop with it, you can confuse the relationship. You think, oh, I feel good. Oh, when he hugged me, I felt so good. I felt so safe. But that's good. That's another step that helps you to try and recognize who the being is. But that's not the thing to itself. And when I started talking about the Trinidad piece, because I'm from South Carolina, and you know, the history, the Jews who've been messing with our history since, our radical history since the 60s, told us that the first black church in the country was the AME church, started by Richard Allen. Isn't that what we taught? And Absalom Jones, but that's not true at all. The first black church started in South Carolina. It was a Baptist church. And that church, when those brothers, they broke away and fought with the British. And thousands of them were taken to Trinidad. You know, up on the hill, what's that? Lebanon? Up on the hill, Lebanon? Yes. And then the houses are still there, some of them, that they lived in. And they were a free community. Even during the time there was a conflict because this group who had fought with the British, they set them up as free men and women. But this whole concept, even the spiritual Baptist movement had its birth among those people. And these were Africans who were rebelling in South Carolina. And then they've now integrated with their brothers and sisters who came from other parts of Africa to form the Trinidad community. You know? Even the Indian community. You know, my wife's family is from she's from the Nanku family, and they're from San Fernando. And so the Indians who were brought here, you got a lot of light ones there, but most of them were black before they left India. That's why they tricked them. It's more, sign a contract. We're going to give you work for 3 years, 4 years. You're going to get paid well. We're going to bring you back to India, good money, and you'll have a nice piece of land in India. Most of them never went back. But they want to admit they were in slavery. They make you think something else is going on. But history, and you have a beautiful brother. Last time I was in Trinidad, last summer. What was I doing there? Giving a lecture. The emancipation, the election for the utility company. What's the name of the big utility company? TNT. They paid you good too. And they got a young black sister who's the CEO of that whole operation down there. But the key thing to understand is that the African and the culture that we devised was a culture of knowing nature. Yes. And knowing us as an aspect of nature. Not nature, that we're just a piece of nature. You understand? So the bumblebee, we saw that as a family member. The oak tree, a family member. Yeah. How do you think we discovered callaloo and the iron and all the things in it? When we left Africa, we didn't have no callaloo. But when we got to Trinidad, our priests and priestesses had to find out what's best for us to eat. Yeah. What's good for our body to be strong working in these cane fields. And they discovered the best of the vegetation. And that became our staple. Why? Because they still had their minds. They still knew who they were. And so now we got to come back. It ain't something catastrophic you got to do. You ain't got to wear no African clothes if you don't want to. No, really. Because that clothes is a time capsule. Most of the cloth we've been wearing over here called African cloth was made in Holland anyway. Right, that's true. Isn't that the truth? Yeah. So don't get caught up on false aesthetics. African dress simply is a modest dressing form. Okay? African dress is a dress out of necessity. What does necessity dictate? In some places, necessity dictates that we didn't need no clothes at all. That's right. But now, the crazy folks, the Christians and the Muslims come in and say, we're profane. But then they got a book that said when God made Adam and Eve, both of their books said the same thing. They were buck naked. And that was the appropriate dress. They didn't try to cover up until they committed a crime against God. So, some deep stuff that be trying to run on you, You got to be like on it. But love. Even in their book, they said, love ye one another. Then may also be loved. But they ain't telling you who doing the loving. It is the essence of the divine in you, recognizing the essence of the divine in me. It's the essence of the divine in me that recognizes the essence of the divine in you. Okay? But that's a series of habits. That's a behavior. That's a level of respect. That's a level of conduct. Okay? That has to do with the preservation of life, the restoration of life, the protection of life, the growth of life. And that's why we invented marriage. Africans invented marriage. What is marriage? We invented a way to form a unit that will protect the offsprings and protect the partners in the unit. So that thing we formed to do that is called marriage, which is done in front of the rest of the community who are witness to that agreement, and then will hold you responsible to it. That's what marriage really is. I mean, today they make you married so you can pay taxes and buy a license. But we didn't pay taxes and buy a license back in the day. The community came and says, okay, I'm holding you, you say you love this brother, the brother say you love you, you said you all want to have this farm and build a family, then we'll come together, we said, we're holding you responsible to that. You've got to protect her. You've got to help to protect him. You all got to service one another. And any offspring you got, we're going to hold you responsible for rearing them appropriately. That's a marriage. When you agree to that. And the community, as a witness, have to hold you responsible for that. So you can't say, stay out of my business, this is my business. No, once you take that oath in front of the community, it ain't your business no more. It's the community's business. That's a real marriage. So love is when you have the knowledge from your ancestors, from your history, about their culture. Remember, all culture is not dancing. Dancing is a tool of culture. Culture is not singing. Singing is a tool of culture. Beyonce on the stage the other day, and people say what they want about that beautiful sister, but and I've met Beyonce. She's a very wonderful person. She's one of the nicest young ladies you want to meet. And I met her husband. You know, he's a very nice brother. You know, and they've managed to survive. You think the cracker just started destroying them yesterday? Jay-Z has outsmarted them all the way down the line. They got Puffy and got some of the others. They got Russell, but Jay-Z never gave in to them. And because his wife is a strong lady and come from a strong family with a mother and father intact, Jay-Z, even though he came from the projects, he had a strong enough backing that he was able to hold himself together. And they'd like to destroy them because they're not controlling them. You know, when the brothers got and sisters got arrested down in Baltimore, they bailed them out. They bailed everybody out. Nobody made any fanfare over that on the news, did they? You know? And they've done a number of other things. The things these people have done with their money, millions and millions of dollars into schools in Africa, into schools over here, into clinics and hospitals. Nobody talks about those things. And many of those young people are doing that sort of thing. But we have to find a way to self-publish so we can self-proclaim ourselves, so we can see some of the things that we're doing, so those kids can see what we're doing. Yeah. But when you come to this question of love, it all comes down to the two people sitting right here. The world is going to be what it's going to be after we're gone, because they're going to make it so. They'll be able to make it so if we make them so. Right. And that's why knowing your history is the key. The absolute key. Don't get so hung up on spirit. The way people are teaching spirituality now is like almost this mysticism, spookism. Spirituality is simply your comprehending and your grasping and your being actively involved in your reality. That's all spirituality is. If you're not actively involved in your reality, you are not a spiritual being. You're not conscious spiritually. You've got to study these books. You got to learn. When you look at Dr. Ben, African mother of Western civilization, you're not just looking at some words on paper, you're looking at the mind of an elder who listened to the mind of many other elders. And then he made some conclusions that he thought would be helpful for you, and he put his mind in this document. So when you study his mind, you're also studying hundreds of other black minds that cared about you. And so when we start studying and we start reading, and even the videotape, and actually there's a very good one right now. Have y'all seen, I saw it popped up there for a minute, um, the last piece, Sabir Bay. Jesus, what's the name? Did I just call his name myself? That crap was stuck up in my mind too. Sabir Bay, he's got a new piece. It's 3 hours long. Um, it's just not clicking. But y'all gotta see this. No, not Hidden Colors. It's Out of Darkness. Is it Out of Darkness?
Yeah,
Out of Darkness.
I was done.
It's a fantastic piece. You've got to watch that piece. And so I'm going to bring it to conclusion because I actually got to get on the road as soon as I walk out here, go home, pick up my daughter and my 2 little grandkids. And we got a 15-hour ride because I got a friend who's being buried tomorrow down in South Carolina. He's not my blood relative, but we grew up in the same village. You know, when I told a brother, I was with the Senegalese brothers last night, and I told him my village person died. He says, "You come from a village?" Yes, I come from a village. Down in the woods in South Carolina by the river. The village is still there. Not as many people live there anymore. But this young man named is Chico. And his name is Charles Gardner Jr. When all of us left and went away, he was one of the brothers that stayed on that plantation, stayed in that village, and he was taking care of my mother, my grandmother, Auntie Mabel, and everybody else's grandmother. So he's passed away at 65, too young. And so I'm going home to go to his funeral and to say some words over my little brother, you know, and to be with my family people, because all of us have our tribes, you know, and our little clan, and that's my tribe and my clan down in Georgetown, South Carolina. So, but I wanted to come today. I promised when I called Quasi one moment, and it sounded like I was kind of weakening. I Brother Quasi sounded like, Brother Quasi would sound like, oh, no, no, small. He like bum rushed me with his intellect. So I had to stop and figure this out, so I'm gonna just wait. Love. We want to feel good, this emotion. Emotion is a part of love. Don't let anybody tell you emotion is negative. Emotion is a part of love. Emotion is the thing that allows you to appreciate an action in a relationship. But the emotion isn't love. And if you stop with it, you can confuse the relationship. You think, oh, I feel good. Oh, when he hugged me, I felt so good because I felt so safe. But that's good. That's another step that help you to try and recognize who the being is. But that's not the thing to itself. And when I started talking about the Trinidad piece, because I'm from South Carolina, and you know the history, the Jews who've been messing with our history since, our radical history since the 60s, told us that the first black church in the country was the AME church, started by Richard Allen. Isn't that what we're taught? And Absalom Jones, but that's not true at all. The first black church started in South Carolina. It was a Baptist church. And that church, when those brothers, they broke away and fought with the British. And thousands of them were taken to Trinidad. You know, up on the hill, what's that, Lebanon? Up on the hill, Lebanon? Yeah. And then the houses are still there, some of them, that they lived in. And they were a free community. Even during the time there was a conflict because this group who had fought with the British, they set them up as free men and women. But this whole concept, even the spiritual Baptist movement had its birth among those people. And these were Africans who were rebelling in South Carolina. And then they've now integrated with their brothers and sisters who came from other parts of Africa to form the Trinidad community. You know, even the Indian community. You know, my wife's family is from she's from the Nanku family, and they're from San Fernando. And so the Indians who were brought here, you got a lot of light ones there, but most of them were black before they left India. That's why they tricked them. Oh, sign a contract. We're going to give you work for 3 years, 4 years. You're going to get paid well. We're going to bring you back to India, good money, and you'll have a nice piece of land in India. Most of them never went back. But they won't admit they were in slavery. They make you think something else is going on. But history, and you have a beautiful brother. Last time I was in Trinidad, last summer. What was participation did actually for the utility company. What's the name of the big utility company? TNT. They paid you good too. And they got a young black sister who's the CEO of that whole operation down there. But the key thing to understand is that the African and the culture that we devise was a culture of knowing nature and knowing us as an aspect of nature, not nature, that we're just a piece of nature. You understand? So the bumblebee, we saw that as a family member. The oak tree, a family member. How do you think we discovered callaloo and the iron and all the things in it? When we left Africa, we didn't have no callaloo. But when we got to Trinidad, our priests and priestesses had to find out what's best for us to eat. What's good for our body to be strong working in these cane fields. And they discovered the best of the vegetation. And that became our staple. Why? Because they still had their minds. They still knew who they were. And so now we got to come back. It ain't something catastrophic you got to do. You ain't got to wear no African clothes if you don't want to. No, really. Because that clothes is a time capsule. Most of the cloth we've been wearing over here called African cloth was made in Holland anyway.
Right, that's true.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
So don't get caught up on false aesthetics. African dress simply is a modest dressing form. Okay? African dress is dressed out of necessity. What does necessity dictate? In some places, necessity dictates that we didn't need no clothes at all.
That's right.
But now, the crazy folks, the Christians and the Muslims come in and say, we're profane. But then they got a book that said when God made Adam and Eve, both of their books said the same thing. They were buck naked. And that was the appropriate dress. They didn't try to cover up until they committed a crime against God. So, some deep stuff they be trying to run on you, You got to be like on it. But love. Even in their book, they said, love ye one another, that ye may also be loved. But they ain't telling you who doing the loving. It is the essence of the divine in you, recognizing the essence of the divine in me. It's the essence of the divine in me that recognizes the essence of the divine in you. Okay? But that's a series of habits. That's a behavior. That's a level of respect. That's a level of conduct. Okay? That has to do with the preservation of life, the restoration of life, the protection of life, the growth of life. And that's why we invented marriage. Africans invented marriage. What is marriage? We invented a way to form a unit that will protect the offsprings and protect the partners in the unit. So that thing we formed to do that is called marriage, which is done in front of the rest of the community who are witness to that agreement, and then will hold you responsible to it. That's what marriage really is. I mean, today they make you marry so you can pay taxes and buy a license. But we didn't pay taxes and buy a license back in the day. The community came and said, okay, I'm holding you, you say you love this brother, the brother say you love you. You said you all want to have this farm and build a family. Then we'll come together, we said, we're holding you responsible to that. You've got to protect her. You've got to help to protect him. You all got to service one another. And any offspring you got, we're going to hold you responsible to rearing them appropriately. That's a marriage. When you agree to that. And the community, as a witness, have to hold you responsible for that. So you can't say, stay out of my business, this is my business. No, once you take that oath in front of the community, it ain't your business no more. It's the community's business. That's a real marriage. So love is when you have the knowledge from your ancestors, from your history, about their culture. Remember, all culture is not dancing. Dancing is a tool of culture. Culture is not singing. Singing is a tool of culture. Beyonce on the stage the other day, and people say what they want about that beautiful sister, but and I've met Beyonce. She's a very wonderful person. one of the nicest young ladies you want to meet. And I met her husband. You know, he's a very nice brother. You know, and they've managed to survive. You think the crackers just started destroying them yesterday? Jay-Z has outsmarted them all the way down the line. They got Puffy and got some of the others. They got Russell, but Jay-Z never gave in to them. And because his wife is a strong lady and come from a strong family with the mother and father intact, Jay-Z, even though he came from the projects, he had a strong enough backing that he was able to hold himself together. And they'd like to destroy them because they're not controlling them. You know, when the brothers got and sisters got arrested down in Baltimore, they bailed them out. They bailed everybody out. Nobody made any fanfare over that on the news, did they? You know? And they've done a number of other things. The things these people have done with their money, millions and millions of dollars into schools in Africa, into schools over here, into clinics and hospitals. Nobody talks about those things. And many of those young people are doing that sort of thing. But we have to find a way to self-publish so we can self-proclaim ourselves, so we can see some of the things that we're doing, so those kids can see what we're doing. You know? But when you come to this question of love, it all comes down to the two people sitting right here. The world is going to be what it's going to be after we're gone, because they're going to make it so. They'll be able to make it so if we make them so.
Right.
And that's why knowing your history is the key, the absolute key. Don't get so hung up on spirit. The way people are teaching spirituality now is like almost this mysticism, spookism. Spirituality is simply your comprehending and your grasping and your being actively involved in your reality. That's all spirituality is. If you're not actively involved in your reality, you are not a spiritual being. You're not conscious spiritually. You've got to study these books. You got to learn. When you look at Dr. Ben, African mother of Western civilization, you're not just looking at some words on paper. You're looking at the mind of an elder who listened to the mind of many other elders. And then he made some conclusions that he thought would be helpful for you, and he put his mind in this document. So when you study his mind, you're also studying hundreds of other black minds that cared about you. And so when we start studying and we start reading, and even the videotape, and actually there's a very good one right now. Have y'all seen, I saw it popped up there for a minute, the last piece, Severe Bay. Jesus, what's the name? Did I just call his name myself? That crap was stuck up in my mind too. Severe Bay. He's got a new piece. It's 3 hours long. It's just not clicking. But y'all gotta see it. No, not Hidden Colors. It's Out of Darkness. Is it Out of Darkness? Yeah. Out of Darkness. It's a fantastic piece. You've got to watch that piece. And so I'm going to bring it to the conclusion because I actually got to get on the road as soon as I walk out here, go home, pick up my daughter and my 2 little grandkids. And we got a 15-hour ride because I got a friend who's being buried tomorrow down in South Carolina. He's not my blood relative, but we grew up in the same village. You know, when I told a brother, I was with the Senegalese brothers last night, and I told him my village person died. He says, "You come from a village?" Yes, I come from a village. Down in the woods in South Carolina by the river. The village is still there. Not as many people live there anymore. But this young man named is Chico. And his name is Charles Gardner Jr. When all of us left and went away, he was one of the brothers that stayed on that plantation, stayed in that village, and he was taking care of my mother, my grandmother, Auntie Mabel, and everybody else's grandmother. So he's passed away at 65, too young. And so I'm going home to go to his funeral and to say some words over my little brother, you know, and to be with my family people, because all of us have our tribes, you know, and our little clan, and that's my tribe and my clan down in Georgetown, South Carolina. So, but I wanted to come today. I promised when I called Quasi one moment, and it sounded like I was kind of weak, and then I heard Quasi sound like, Quasi would sound like, oh, no, no, small. He like bum rushed me with his intellect. So I had to stop and figure this out, so I would just wait. And because of that, Quasi, I'm I'm driving 15 hours instead of taking a 2-hour plane ride. But that's okay. I wanted to come because I love what the brother is doing. I love his spirit. I love those people who come like you out to see what we got to say. And I'm trying to make it simple. I don't want to bamboozle you and show you how intellectual I am. But let me get the people straight. He's a Professor Small. Let me tell you, because you really don't know who I am at all. Most people don't know very much about me at all. I've got a bachelor's degree. I don't have a master's degree and I don't have a PhD. But I produced hundreds of PhDs and thousands of master's degrees. I started the Black Studies Department at City College and brought Dr. Leonard Jeffries there as an undergrad student. Because I had a mosque and I had an army, I could walk up to the president of the school and say, listen here, give me everything I want and you'll have the quietest campus in New York. In fact, I look at me and go like, you can do that? I said, you got this whole elaborate program, you just came in here as the president, I'll guarantee you have a campus with no unrest. But I gotta have a Black Studies Department, and you know who helped me put it together? Brother Harold Cruz. Y'all know who Harold Cruz is? Y'all need to read the book for this brother. One is called Separate But Equal. No, not Separate But Equal. Separate But Equal. And the other is called The Crisis of the Black Intellectual, the Negro Intellectual. But this was a bad brother. Unsung, he was teaching at Columbia University at the time, along with another brother who worked with Kwame Ture called Charles Hamilton. And those are the two brothers that helped us put the Black Studies Department together, along with one of your homeboys out of Trinidad, Frederick Carty. Professor Fred Carty, he was blind. I think his brother was in my shrine at Seguanas. You know, they're all ancestors now. But we put that thing together, and I didn't like going to class, so I'd go to the white boys and go like, listen. First one day I came in with a still later when I took over the class, made him sit down, and I taught it. And security guards on the campus, I'd help all those brothers get their jobs, so nobody was going to arrest Brother Small because they were scared of the brothers from the mosque. So I made a deal with them. I won't come to any classes. Give me a paper to write, and you just give me a grade at the end of the day. And that's how I got a bachelor's. And then they tried to hem on that. And then I had to tell them, you can make it easy on yourself. I'm telling y'all the truth, you know. Give me the degree and I'll leave y'all alone. I won't bother y'all. So they gave me a bachelor's degree. And I went away for a semester and I came back. And they said, but you promised you wouldn't come back. I said, I never promised you I wouldn't come back. I told you I'd leave you alone. And I left them alone for a whole semester. And so I came back and they had a big meeting and made me sign a document that I would not get involved in politics on the campus. And they had some Negroes with them. And I signed the document. Then I ran for student government president and got elected. And I ran the campus. And we got a Black Studies Department. We got the Aaron Davis Center for the Performing Arts at City College. That's our project. We got the Urban Legal Studies program, the law program at City College. That was our project. We got the biomedical program at City College. That was our project, done by Black doctors in the Harlem community. And we got other things. And we got something else, because I was in the street. I came out of the mosque. And so, when you're in the streets, who else is in the street with you? The gangster brothers. That's where you got your guns from. That's how you hung up with them. And so I went to a brother named Nicky Barnes. Now, Nicky wasn't the nicest of our brothers. But me and Brother Evans went to Nicky and said, listen, we're doing something up at City College that's unheard of. We had turned City College into the blackest college, the largest black college in America. We were producing more doctors every year than Meharry and Howard combined. We were producing more engineers than Morehouse, Harry, and Howard combined. And the crackers hadn't seen us yet. So we said, we want a drug-free campus. So I made a promise to Nicky, because we were fighting in the streets over certain issues, that I won't mess with you outside of the arches of the campus, but you don't mess with us with your drugs inside the arches of this campus. And anybody we get caught dealing on the campus, you handle them. And City College was the only drug-free campus in New York, and you've never heard anybody advocate that. So finally they were able to get rid of me. Of course, one day I got a call. They called me in the office. the alumni folks, and they says to me, like, I was about to take over the student union and the student center, because that's where they laundered their money. They had a budget of $2.5 million. They had 80 student organization accounts. So me and Dr. Jeffries and some others, we were about to take it over, and I was going to become the leader of it. So the crackers called me into the meeting and said, James, you know, we know you and Carol got them 4 kids. You know you're not making no money. They investigated me. They knew I was broke like I am today. And it says, so we want to give you a master's degree and a PhD degree. I looked at them, and I was like, I was doing the whole animated thing. Y'all serious? They said, yeah. They said, we got this Negro now. And there's some white boys in there I didn't know. So I know you the CIA boys and whoever they had at back in the mountain, about 5 of them. And I'm in there by myself. So I said, well, how that's going to work? I said, what happened? They said, well, we're going to get you a job at another college because we want you to lead the city. But we're going to get you employed someplace else. And I said, well, what happened the minute I do something y'all don't like? So who's going to leak this out to the press? They said, oh, no. We're going to sit somebody in the classroom and earn the degree for you. And then they thought they had me. I was smiling. And I thought, like, no, thank you. So, you know what? This is when I knew the other white men in there were people bigger than him. Because this cracker, who I knew, said, nigga, what you want? And for him to call me that, he had to have back. I didn't know what the back was, but he had back. So I said, I want the same thing you want for your people. Figure out what you want for your people, you figure out what I want for mine. And then they throw me out, y'all, can we get the hell out of the office? Because eventually it took them another 5 years to get some black. The first black president who I brought in, and the first black vice president who I brought in, single-handedly, were the ones that turned on me and pushed me off of City College campus. Which is the most amazing thing, because I didn't understand, sister, I didn't understand the God in me. So I didn't recognize the God in them. I thought because they were black like me, they were just like me. They weren't like me. They were like them. And I remember they sent a white boy to give me the word, Jason Finkelstein. And they offered me a job to give up the student center. This is after 18 years. I'm running. Anybody remember City College? I had programs 365 for the black community. Every weekend. People from Ghana, Nigeria, Trinidad, Jamaica, everywhere. You want to have your party? City College. You want to have a wedding? City College. You want to have a funeral? Memorial? City College. You want to have a theater production? City College. We did it there. You know? And so they said to the brother Jason, come to me and said, well, they want you to take a job in administration. They're going to give you full tenure, and they're going to give you triple your salary. See, because I had the laundry market. See, what a student center is, they handle what they call soft money, non-tax levied monies. So you can laundry the money you're stealing from the tax money through the city, through this soft money. So I had stolen the laundry market. They couldn't laundry anything. So they wanted the laundry market. I had a budget of $2.5 million, and I was the last signatory. So I was just doing all kinds of things for the black community. And they were trying all kinds of things to get it back. So they finally got it back. Jason came in and said, they want to make this offer. I said, no. A week later, Jason comes in and said, crying. His wife keeps crying. He said, I just quit. I just resigned. I said, well, why you resigning, Jason? He said, because they told me to bring you another message, and I don't want to be a part of it. I said, what's the message? They said, you don't know how to play the game, and they're going to teach you. So the way they taught me, I created the Student Services Corporation with faculty and students on the corporation, but I had a 1 student majority vote. Well, they bought her out for 30 grand and a boyfriend for 30 grand and 2 scholarships to Penn State. And they voted against me. And that's how they took over the Student Service Corporation. And that's how I got put out of City College. You know, I also taught. I taught a full professor's load, but they wouldn't pay me for a full professor's salary. That means you're teaching 3 classes a week. I did that for 15 years. I also taught at New York City Tech here in Brooklyn with a bachelor's degree because they didn't have the testicles to tell me I couldn't do it. So when people say Professor Small, understand who you're really talking to. I wasn't one of them. I was one of y'all. And I remained there. That was important to me. I never made it a salary more than $22,000 in all those years I was in that university. Then I don't have any retirement money. They don't pay you for fighting against them. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I made sure that all of my children, I got them through college, all of them have masters and PhD, all of them are serving the black community. My wife, who I met when we were both freshmen, I sat on and took care of babies and carried them on the back, doing 2 jobs and stayed in the movement while she went to medical school. So we're not suffering. But we take care of other people and other things all around the country, so we ain't got no abundance. You know, we got to go month for month because we dedicate our life to this.
Yes.
You know, it's freedom of death. All my children was born in Malcolm's sister's house. All of them grew up in Ella's house. You know, Betty Shabazz is like my mother. She wasn't somebody I knew. That was my heart.
Yes. Betty.
But I always stayed as invisible as I could. Most people,
Yes.
they only know me as this professor. They don't really know anything about what I did. I was Adam Powell's security. You know, I was trained by a brother over here you call Abu Badika, Sonny Carson. And he had a counterpartner in Harlem called Sonny Malik, who was a bad dude. That was Malcolm's bodyguard. He was never in the nation. He was one of them gangster brothers out of the streets who stayed loyal. There was a group of them who stayed loyal to Malcolm. But on the day Malcolm was killed, they were arrested 2 weeks before on a federal warrant, taken to Atlanta without charges, and they were in jail when Malcolm got killed. The Blood Brotherhood, Jamal and those brothers who might have been with Malcolm in that ballroom, they did a sweep. Boss, the New York City Police Department, 2 weeks before, put them on the Erie Lackawanna and sent them out to Mattawan. Anybody remember Mattawan was the youth prison up in there, Poughkeepsie. Erie Lackawanna was the train that took the prisoners home. So they swept Harlem. They swept Harlem of all the pieces. This is the federal government and the local government. That's how you know this was not the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam couldn't put Sonny in prison. The Nation of Islam couldn't lock up Jamal and another 100 of the Blood Brothers. So who did the sweep? Who gave the orders? But me, I was just the little brother there. When you're security, you know, you just stand on your post. But you standing on your post, you're hearing everything, you're seeing everything. You know, since I was Ella's confidant, I was not just her bodyguard, I was a chauffeur, and I handled all bank accounts. You know, and we all went armed. You know, in those days you can take arms on a plane. Y'all believe there was a time when I get on a plane with an M16 on an overcoat? Yeah. When we traveled heavy. We traveled loaded. At the Black Power Conference of '67, I was walking around with this black satchel. 2 M16. Everybody thought it was just paperwork. You know? This was the way all of our people was. Milana was there, Rap Brown was there, Stokely Carmichael was there, Ella Collins was there. That's why I met Francis Welsing was there. You name it. Everybody in the movement from across the country was in Newark because our brother had just been arrested. And so we put the conference there thinking we can get Amiri out of jail. And it was Francis Welsing that told us we need to get our bus out of that building and get out there in the streets and get them brothers out of jail. She was a young lady then, big afro. But she was firing up the militants in the movement. So she ain't just an old lady with gray hair that's writing a book.
Right.
You know, she came from the streets of the struggle, even though she was a medical doctor. I'm saying that because a lot of times people don't really know who you are when you're talking to them.
Exactly.
You know, I was the liaison between the Black Panther Party and the OAAU. So I walked with Eldridge Cleaver, Catherine, you know, the brothers in the Black Liberation Army. There was 2 of us. We were the face of the Black Liberation Army because the army was underground, but it was through the OAU that we did all of the work that had to be done above ground, which was mainly the propaganda. Mantu Matsamela, who I haven't seen my brother in years, that was my other partner. My other partner was a brother named Zaid Shakur. How many people know who Zaid Shakur was? He's the husband of Asada Shakur. That's who got killed on the turnpike that day. Asada was defending her husband, who had been shot in the back by the state troopers. He was one of the Panther 21 and the only Panther 21 that did not surrender. His brother was Lumumba Shakur. Lumumba Shakur was married to Afeni Shakur, who's the mother of Tupac Shakur. Their father, Imam Shakur, from the Elizabeth Mosque, is my teacher. That's who taught me Islam. Matula Shakur is the other brother who ran the program at Lincoln Hospital, which was a program where he was using acupuncture to get brothers and sisters off of heroin. And so, of course, they said Matula was the head of the Black Liberation Army, and that's why he's in prison. He was not involved in the Brinks robbery, but they decided he's the mind behind the robbery, so we're going to put him in jail forever. So we still have comrades that's in jail from back in those days. You know. When Asada was extracted from the penal system, she was right at home. I can't say what the location is because then they'll be able to say, well, who might have been involved.
Right, right.
But I was involved in her security detail one day when we walked in the park, and we actually sit in the park. She had an old wig and an old beat-up dress, and we had a wine bottle. You know, we all splashed a little wine in our face, and we played good whist. And the cop actually walked up to the table with her picture and asked if we had seen this woman. That's the last time I saw her because she had to be moved the next day. And then after she had the baby, she was about then close to 9 months pregnant. So the baby was born maybe 2 or 3 weeks after that. Then she went to Cuba. There's another brother in Cuba named Willie Morales. How many people know Willie Morales? These are the soldiers that fought for you. El Lobo. You know Willie. Okay. Bad dude. Founded an organization called FALN, Front for the National Liberation of Puerto Rico. That was my comrade, hardcore. In one of the bomb factories, there was an accident. He lost all of his fingers. But like Asada, he was able to escape from federal detention too, and he's in Cuba. So that's the school I come out of. So you'll have a better understanding of where I come from. Those are my comrades. And those were strong comrades. These are young brothers and sisters. None of us then, we were all like 25, 26, and willing to die for you. Without question, because Malcolm died for us, without question. To be talking about love. You understand what real love is? Anybody remember in the history they talk about a shooting at Jackson State University? But you remember they always show on TV the shooting at Kent State, the little white girl on the ground.
Right.
But right after they did that and the white folks got upset, they just went and shot up Jackson University. So let's kill some black folks and take the pressure off of us for killing the white folks. Well, some young brothers and sisters loved you. So they killed 2 white people from Maine to Florida. But you never saw that on the front page of the newspaper. But on the way back from Florida, because of the unconsciousness of family members seeing the weapons, when they left one of the sisters home in Florida, she called the FBI. My brother was down here, and they all had these guns, and yada, yada, yada. And so there was a shootout in the grocery store in South Carolina, and Alania was killed. And they captured another brother, Martin. Martin was 15 at the time, and Ben Cheney. Ben Cheney was the younger brother of James Cheney, who was killed in Mississippi, Philadelphia, Mississippi, and they found him with the 2 white boys. But his younger brother had joined up, Ben. You see him in the pictures there when he's a little boy with his mom. But he was a part of that group that handled your business. And they went to prison, him and Elijah, for about 15 years. Because they couldn't prove the situation on them, so they had to put a robbery on them. And I remember the day I was in California, so I was called back as the imam to come and do Alania's funeral. And I remember we were burying him, and it was cold, the earth was frozen, and we wouldn't let the undertaker bury him. We were burying him, but in the cemetery in Jersey, all around in the hills, there's cops with high-powered rifles, about 100 of them, not counting the ones surrounding the cemetery standing by their cars. That's how we had to bury our dead. That was your Black Liberation Army. They want to treat us like we're a bunch of criminals.
Yeah.
And we were bank robbers, but we called it what? Extraction. You know, liberation, liberating something that was yours. I'm talking about this. People, why are you talking about I'm 70? What are they going to do with me now? But people say I talked about this before. Because you did have people who were willing to die for you like that out here. You had people in the nation who didn't wear bow ties. Am I right? Still got it. Who worked on your behalf out here and acted on your behalf out here. But the media has made you think that the people who love you most is your enemy.
Yeah.
The few people willing to die for you to be free that made you think that's your enemy. Let me tell you something. Real love is getting to know those people and embracing those people. Real love, find out who Matua Shakur is. And let's bring him home. You know, he's in his 70s now. He's been there since his 20s. His brother Lamumba, when Lamumba and Afeni got married, me and my wife got married in the same room. We got married in Malcolm's sister's bedroom. Everything was that tight back in those days, you know what I'm saying? We were all just one little family. I'm just saying that to let you understand, I don't just talk about Malcolm. I lived in that world. We weren't just talking. We were trying to change things anywhere and everywhere we could. But we understood, and this to come back to the key thing before I wrap it up and end, to truly understand Malcolm is to understand the transformation that the knowledge that he got from his elder, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, did for him. That self-transformation gave him the consciousness to know he needed to be a freedom fighter. And the extent to which he's willing to go, and he went the extent he gave his life. And none of us should do anything less. Some of us will live to be old. Some of us may not. But you can never die if you understand the African science that you are nothing more than the divine, an aspect, like a speck of dust off of God having this experience called you. And if somebody snatched your body away, the speck of dust just become a part of the greater body of energy that it came from in the first place. That's our theology, and that's our science. And people ought to stop playing with you with the hocus pocus.
Right.
And tell you the truth. Eating right, how to eat to live, it still ain't such a bad book. That's another one of the nation's peace. And I was never in the nation. In the early days, I was at bloody war with the nation. I'm the one that negotiated the peace with the minister. We met at the National Black Theater. Guess who brokered it? Khalid. Khalid called the meeting and got me and the minister. Me and my people came in. The minister came with a certain amount of FY, a certain amount of sisters. And we did what brothers are supposed to do. Put that shit behind us. Put it behind us. That's why when Khalid came to take over Temple number 7, remember it had been closed for many years because the Nassas community wasn't even hearing it. Who poured libation for him in the Apollo? Me. I poured libation. I stood with him to tell the Nassas community, we will accept them coming back. When Conrad came, I poured the libation for Conrad. Because we've got to unite as a family.
Yes.
Studying our history and gaining an understanding that, yes, you're going to have conflict. You're going to have conflict with your sibling. You're going to have conflict with your mate. The key is, do you have the body of wisdom